Leave a comment where you are listening in the world. Please subscribe if you enjoy our content. Enjoy! We met up from Tinder to get some ice cream at a mom and pop ice cream parlor that was walking distance from her apartment. The date was okay. A little awkward. I'm a pretty outgoing guy, especially on dates, but she was really quiet and didn't laugh at any of my stories or jokes. Maybe they didn't land, or maybe she just didn't find me funny, which is fine. My humor isn't for everyone. But she was just standoffish immediately. Her behavior reminded me of meeting up with a girlfriend that was trying to decide how to break up with you throughout the date. She didn't show any typical uninterested behavior, sighs, eye-rolling, texting during date, etc. She wasn't like this over text at all. Her texts were full of smiley faces, flirty, and she even sent me genuinely funny Snapchats. She also didn't look as good as her pictures or Snapchats. I wasn't catfished, necessarily, because you can tell that this girl was the same person in her pictures, but everything was just kinda off physically. It was almost as if she was that two-faced girl from that episode of Seinfeld, and she was just in that terrible lighting the entire date, best way I could explain it. Wasn't the lighting's fault, she just looked off. When the date was over, I was planning on walking to her car, hugging her goodnight, and then just never talking to her again. But when I asked her where her car was parked, she said she had walked to the shop from her apartment. This set off red flags immediately, because she was the one who set up the location of the date. She picked where we were supposed to meet up. She asked for my crossroads and told me that she'd pick a location halfway between us. I live 15 miles from the location, so she purposely chose something really out of the way for me, so that she could walk to the date. This felt really weird to me, but I assumed maybe she got the crossroads wrong and just gave her a hug and said goodbye. As I was leaving, she followed behind me and asked me to walk her home since she didn't live far and was afraid of the dark. I wanted to say no, but it was dark out and I didn't see much light where she'd be walking, so I just clutched my pepper spray in my pocket close and prepared for the worst. We made awkward small talk on the short walk there and hugged her goodbye again, where she walked into the complex and disappeared. I drove home and got a text from her that read, "Hey, sorry about tonight. I know it wasn't what you expected, and I just wanted to say sorry for acting so weird all night." Apparently, the reason why she was so strange was because she was scared of me the whole night. Her last Tinder date had sexually assaulted her, and she was really nervous the entire date that I was going to hurt her. She thought she was emotionally ready the day leading up to the date, so she didn't cancel. When she realized that nothing bad was going to happen, she asked me to walk her to her car, which was parked at a nearby apartment complex. Because she was scared of the dark, she parked there because she wanted me to think she lived close by in case I tried following her home or something, where she waited until she watched me walk away. I understood and felt bad for her, but decided to still not continue seeing her. I don't know if this constitutes a horror story, but I did have one really weird date. Matched with this girl. We exchanged a few messages, and then she asked me to friend her on Facebook. I thought that was a bit weird, so I just ignored the message. Figured she'd forget about me. She's a woman on an online dating service, so she must get 50 messages a day, right? 3 days later, she messages me, or not. And I liked her spunk, so I figured, okay, why not? Friend her on FB, and messaged her later that night, and we ended up chatting for over hours. She was really cool, and we had tons in common, even weird idiosyncrasies. This was a week before Christmas. I was leaving on the 22nd for a week and a half, and she was leaving for a trip to Japan on Christmas, so we met up that Saturday. Had a fun time. She stayed over at my place, and the next day suggested we get together again that night. I was a bit taken aback that she wanted to hang out again already, but I said sure. Went to her place that night, had a nice time. The next day, before I left for work, she told me that I was the most genuine person she'd ever met, and had no flaws, which seemed a hasty pronouncement, but I figured, hey, she seems confident and I guess she just knows what she wants, and I'm it. She and I both work in tech, and she also said several times how she was finally glad to meet an engineer that wasn't social awkward or downright weird. When I leave for work, she says we should get together again that night. I was leaving early the next day, and I asked her if she really wanted to hang out again. And she said that yeah, we were both going away, and it would be nice to see each other before we left. So I said sure, come over. So she comes over again, I leave for my trip the next day, and we spend the next few days texting back and forth. I was pretty happy, she seemed awesome, but maybe a bit hasty. While I was in Denver, she invited me on a trip back home to meet her parents. We had met less than a week before, and that seemed a bit fast, but whatever, she was just excited, I suppose. She told me she missed me a few times, and sent me tons of photos of herself, totally curated. Stuff you could post to Facebook, just her out and about doing things with friends and whatnot. Anyway, Christmas Day she leaves for Japan. Spends the next week and a half there. She's texting me less, but still sending me messages and photos every day. She's a bit less flirtatious than she had been, but I figured she was busy on her trip, and probably a bit stressed out from travel. She seemed like the anxious type. The night before she came back, I had already returned from mine. She tells me how she's looking forward to seeing me when she gets back, and she got me a gift that is kind of quirky yet very you. Which, again, seemed a bit weird since she didn't know me that well, but I figured that was just her style. She gets back the Tuesday after New Year's and invites me over that night. We hang out a bit, but she was really tired and not feeling well, jet-lagged, so I left after a few hours. Didn't hear from her for 3 days, but prior to going to Japan, she had already made plans to do something that Saturday night. It was emo night at a local bar. She was really into emo, which maybe should have been the first clue. So I figured I'd just see her then. And things had been moving a bit fast, so I figured maybe she just wanted some space and to rest from her trip. Finally, 3 days after seeing her, that Friday, she messages me in the evening with a long message that says how she had no romantic feelings for me anymore, and how I had moved things along too fast by messaging her, sending her photos of my trip, and saying I missed her. Which sounds reasonable out of context, but keep in mind she had been messaging me constantly, and had sent me tons of photos, and had asked me to send her photos of my trip. I hadn't for the first few days I was on my trip, and she told me she missed me several times. So her accusation was a bit confusing. The message continued into a second paragraph, saying that we had a lot in common but were very different people, and wanted different things from a relationship, which of course, we had not discussed what we were precisely looking for. Then it rambled a bit about how she needed space, and was going to spend the next few weeks catching up on work and helping her friend find a new job, which seemed a bit odd, too, detailing her upcoming life plans in a breakup note, but whatever. And then it ended with how I am a very nice and caring person, and can find someone who is a better match, yada yada yada. Then she disappeared. Haven't heard from her since. Strangely, she and I are still friends on Facebook, and she still follows me on Instagram. I stopped following her shortly after she broke up with me, but hasn't interacted with me at all. Last summer I matched with a guy, Ben, on Tinder, and we immediately hit it off. We started FaceTiming and texting 24/7. After about 2 weeks, we decided to hang out in person. He lived an hour away from me and drove down to meet me for lunch in my city at a tiny hole-in-the-wall restaurant I love. He was handsome and charming, but immediately seemed on edge, and kept looking around the whole time we were at lunch, which made me a little nervous. Ben tells me he's actually been to my city before a couple years ago, because he's been to the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum here. I hadn't been there before, and I said we should go because that sounded interesting. Well, Ben tells me we can go to the museum, but that there's also this cool abandoned dance club behind it that he also wanted to show me. For some reason, I thought that agreeing to go to an abandoned building with someone I had known for about 20 minutes. The museum was fine and nothing weird happened, and he got way more comfortable, and then we start heading to the dance club. It seriously looked just like a warehouse, and I started getting more nervous, but we go in anyway. There were a bunch of crazy paintings on the walls that we took pictures of, and tons of newspapers from the 60s and 70s. It was really cool. Surprisingly, nothing sketchy happened. After the dance club, we decided to go on a snow cone picnic at the lake, where I remember that there's this kind of iconic bridge in my city that's supposedly haunted. Ben's really into that kind of stuff, so I wanted to impress him and take him there. I had a really foggy memory of where it is, because it's in the middle of the woods. We start heading to the bridge around 7, and we got so horribly lost. We find an opening in the fence that marks where the park limitations are, and we walk through it. Once we walk through the fence, there's a beautiful area full of hills and ponds, and the sunset is looking over all of this. So Ben asked if we could sit and watch the sunset, which was romantic as heck, so of course I agreed. Once the sun had set, the reality of our situation had also set in that we were still lost, but now it's completely dark. We walk along the fence for about an hour until we can find a place we can recognize, which was about 4 miles from my car. At this point, we're pretty beaten down. We've been wandering in the woods for 3 hours. We're tired. We just want to get to my car. We start walking when a windowless white van pulls up to us asking if we want to ride back to our car. At this point of the day, I should have been in so many sketchy situations I didn't even care. I said fuck it, let's get in the windowless van. The guy in the windowless van introduces himself to us, but we can't really hear him over the blaring rap music. I tell him where my car is, and he gets the van onto the bike lane instead of the street, and starts going 60 miles per hour. I was freaking out internally, but we made it to my car successfully. Ben and I said goodnight, and he went back to his house, after a lunch date turned into an 11-hour date. Our 1-year anniversary is next month. I went on a roller coaster of a date with a French guy in Paris. It was summer, and we were meeting on the steps of Sacré-Cœur. We arrive and he brought red wine, and I made a comment jokingly saying, "Oh, you got red in summer." And he responded with, "Oh, I guess I'm a piece of shit for getting the wrong wine," which immediately made me think I have made a dire mistake. I reassured him and told him I was just teasing, but that was red flag number 1. During our convo, he kept complimenting me incessantly, like to the point where it's uncomfortable. After like 10 compliments, you don't even know what to say anymore. Like at one point I was telling him a story, and he kept interrupting me to say, "Your eyes are so beautiful I can't stop staring at them." And I was like, "Thank you, that is so nice. Okay, back to my story." Like it was non-stop. At one point after the 19th compliment, and my gracious thanks, I heard him mumble in French, "And I'm waiting for you to say the same to me." And I was like, "What was what?" And he goes, "Oh, nothing." He didn't think I spoke French, but I am fluent. So that was uncomfortable, shoving compliments at me and pouting when I didn't give him one back. Like, "Sir, if I wanted to compliment you, I would. I love complimenting people." But I wasn't overly attracted to him, and also who TF says that. Red flag number 2. He asks me if I've been on many Bumble dates, to which I said yes, many. I've been single for a while, and I go on dates often. He didn't like this. He began asking me why I haven't settled down with any of them, and I explained that I've met lots of really great guys, but it just hasn't clicked yet. He then got weirdly quiet for a few minutes, and then said, "You know, not everyone is going to be as perfect as you. Life isn't a fairy tale. You have to give people chances, you know." Okay, so now I realize I am seated next to a French incel, or one in the making. Awesome. I reply and tell him that yes, I obviously know that. I don't think I'm perfect or better than anyone. I hadn't settled down because there hasn't been a strong connection thus far. Not because I am not giving these guys chances. That dating is a two-person thing, and sometimes the guy doesn't want to meet again also. And that yes, I know life isn't a fairy tale. TF? Red flag 3. At one point on the steps he's asking me where I live, and I say, "Oh, just down there, like 2 streets down." And he starts asking me where specifically, like is insisting I tell him which street. Jesus Christ. Oh, and there were a lot more self-deprecating sentences like, "Oh, just shit," sprinkled throughout. So at this point I'm trying to get out of here as soon as possible. We finish the wine and walk up the steps to the top, and am planning my exit. We get to the top, and he turns to me as I'm about to leave, and he looks at me and goes, "You have to give me another chance." And say, "Listen, thank you for the wine, but I am not going to see you again, I'm sorry." He gets very upset. His eyes get huge, and he starts yelling, "I did my studies, I have a CDI, you must give me a second chance." In France, a CDI is a permanent contract, and it's a big deal because you can't be fired, but like every person I know has a CDI. And since when does having a permanent contract equate to women owing you something? By now people are starting to look at us. I am calmly telling him that no, I don't think so, when he grabs my arm and keeps going on about his CDI. But people are looking, so he lets go, and I say to him that this is not fun, I am not enjoying this, and I don't have to do anything. He has a moment where I think he's about to hit me, and I can see his eyes thinking, and trying to figure out how to keep me here without causing a scene. And I take my chance and run down the stairs as fast as I can. And I am obviously terrified, because he knows the general area where I live. Thankfully he didn't follow me, likely because of the crowd of people who started watching us. Never blocked someone so fast in my life. Met a guy off a dating app at a restaurant. He looked nothing like his picture, but fine, I'm not rude. He ordered Diet Dr. Pepper with his meal, and drank the first one in 30 seconds or so, and started snapping at the waitress for more. I swear he drank 15 to 25 cups at least during this awful meal. I've never seen anything like it, and I was really uncomfortable and grossed out. He kept bringing up meeting his kids because they need a stepmom, and his mother because he's close to her, and she was gonna really love having me. He practically licked his plate clean, and I was so uneasy, I couldn't eat, so he got a to-go box for my food. But for himself, I keep thinking gluttony, who drinks like that? No manners at all either. He called his mom during to let her know he found the one. I was barely even talking, because his behavior was so gross, and then he didn't leave a tip. I went back and put a tip, and I took my time hoping he would just leave, but no, he was waiting. We went outside, and I was a little scared to walk to my car because of the conversation, and him saying his kids would love me as a stepmom, and other nonsense. I told him thanks, and bye, and he asks for a hug. I said I am not comfortable giving hugs to people at all, even ones I know well, so no. He then asks for a kiss. Now WTF? If I don't hug you, YTF would I kiss you? Seriously? I said no way. He then got closer, and was saying please, please. I stepped back, and said no thanks, seriously no. I decided to just walk to my car, and drive to a store in case he followed me. He followed me to my car, and was still asking for a kiss. I got in and locked the doors, and drove off fast, hoping he didn't have time to follow me. I swear he teleported in his car because he was right behind me. He didn't obviously, he just happened to be parked a car away. I did drive around aimlessly for a while, then go to Target, because I was really afraid to drive straight home. It was crazy. Then he started texting me. I was trying to be nice, especially since it was the first date I'd gone on in years, and I thought maybe this is normal behavior. Maybe I'm being weird. He sent me photos of his kids in fancy clothes, saying they just bought new wedding outfits. He sent me pictures of him cooking chicken and of a pool, and told me I was to come spend the weekend swimming and eating at his place. He said he told his mom about me, and she can't wait to meet me. I blocked his number LOL. Then he started messaging me through the dating app, and I deleted the app. Scared me honestly, and I didn't go on another date for a couple years. The way he was dressed really bothered me too, which I know is stupid, but he was wearing a pink polo with jean shorts and black dress shoes, with white socks pulled up to his knees. The whole thing was kinda scary, kinda embarrassing. Sorry I didn't know which part of what he said was the worst, so I just shortened it as much as I could. He and I had began casually chatting through social media. I had remembered his face from the high school we had gone to. He was a year older than I, and during our high school years had been one of the guys that all the girls had gushed over in high school. I guess I felt flattered that he would speak to me after high school, after a few years. We had never spoken until a few years after high school, but during the time we had talked online, he seemed really nice and friendly. After talking online for a few days, he invited me out on his boat, which I agreed to. I figured why not. As soon as we get on the boat, he was just acting weird, just really overly flirty. Eventually he rammed his tongue down my throat, which was gross. I'm not sure why I kissed him back or didn't ask him to take me home. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. On the way back to my house, he kept glancing at me trying to be seductive and saying things like, "You have no idea what I would do to you," and how good he thought I looked sitting there. He kept asking if he could go to my room, and we could hang out and watching a movie on my bed. I turned that offer down countless times. Later that night, my best friend and I were going to go dancing/drinking at a club. I can't remember how said guy was invited, but he ended up coming with us. We took my best friend's car, so it was just the three of us. I ended up drinking a lot of tequila that night. I didn't mean to get that drunk, but I did, enough to say a few sexually flirtatious things toward him. After the three of us left the club, I was still pretty trashed, but I laid down in the back seat of the car while he, the only sober one, drove my best friend and I back home. My best friend lived on the street behind me at the time, so he had parked his car at my best friend's house before we had originally left to go to the club. He dropped my best friend off and he helped me into his car. I noticed he had put the car doors on child lock. This is where things took a creepy turn. He started the car and kept saying how we were going to get a hotel together. I remember everything being really blurry, but I kept repeating the words no over and over again. He got mad and punched the steering wheel as he said, "Oh, come on. It's not like I'm going to do anything to you. And you're going to that hotel with me." I knew I had to think quick on my feet, so I agreed to go to the hotel with him only if he would stop at my house on the next street over, so I could get a change of clothes. He did, thankfully. As soon as the car doors were unlocked, I had never jumped out of a car so fast. He ended up begging me to let him stay at my house for the night, claiming that his grandparents, who he resided with at the time, had locked him out at the time of the night. I caved. I let him sleep in the guest bedroom. I locked my bedroom door and fell asleep. It was maybe around 3 a.m., and I woke up to what sounded like his shaking my door handle roughly, and he kept repeating my name. I was scared, so I just laid there and didn't move. I heard him walking back to the bedroom and the door close. The next day he said he was going to go home. He winked at me before leaving and I never saw the guy again. Honestly, it was the weirdest and creepiest date of my life. I was at a good-sized house party in college, and the host introduced me to his lab mate shortly after I got there. We got to talking while things were warming up. No one was tanked yet, and people were still arriving. Eventually the lab mate asked me for my number. He was okay looking, seemed a little dull but harmless, and I agreed. We barely knew each other, but why not? It's college. You meet people and have a series of terrible and meaningless relationships. He disappeared shortly after. I didn't think much of it, because the house was decent-sized and figured he wandered off. The party ended around 3, when we were out of booze. The next morning around 8:30 a.m. I got a call. Barely conscious, maybe still a bit drunk, I answered like an idiot. It was him. He asked me out for a nice steak dinner and church that evening. To get him off of the phone as quickly as possible, so I could go back to sleep, I agreed to whatever he was asking without really understanding the question, and awoke around noon with no real memory of the conversation. He called me a few hours later asking me for my address, so he could pick me up. Memories came flooding back. I gave it to him, hastily showered, put on makeup and a nice outfit, regretting agreeing to this but looking forward to the steak, and went down to my apartment's garage to meet him. He was dressed short of schlubby, but I figured that's a grad student for you. I didn't think a nice place would really turn us away. As he drove, he proceeded to flip through dozens of songs, mostly Elvis, never letting one finish, sometimes starting from the beginning of the same song several times in a row. I heard the first minute of You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog more time than I care to admit that night. He then revealed to me he didn't like music and everything on his iPod was from his dad borrowing it for a road trip. It was a 64 gigabytes, big for the time and expensive, with around 100 songs on it. Utterly bizarre and distracting. It also turned out he didn't really like anything, couldn't name a book he'd read since high school, or even one he enjoyed, didn't watch TV but was lurking while his roommates were watching Fawlty Towers, but didn't understand the humor, didn't have a favorite movie. His reply was, I like everything. When I asked and said he liked Titanic, didn't play video games. Didn't know Harry Potter was a book series before a movie. Favorite food was Taco Bell. What had I gotten into? We were heading to a nice part of town, past a couple of nice restaurants, and I eagerly ask him where we're going to end up. He replies with a vague, oh, you'll see. To keep the conversation going, I asked where he disappeared to last night. He said he left because his bedtime is at 10:30 p.m. sharp every night. I asked if that's why he'd called me so early. He seemed surprised, and thought he'd given me time for sleeping in. Holy shit. My apprehension grew. He then turned suddenly into a Denny's parking lot. We go in. Shit. I'm way overdressed. We're seated. I figured I was promised steak. I'm getting one even if it's nastiest, most gristly slab of beef in the city. He turns to me and eagerly asks if I'm okay with splitting. I was tempted to buy us each our own damn steak, but to be polite and to not embarrass him I agreed, resolving to eat a proper dinner at home. The steak came, we split. I tried to not feel the judgmental eyes of the staff on me and proceeded to church. It was a Saturday night young adult service with contemporary music, and was supposed to be some sort of place for the non-secular devout to hang out on Saturday nights instead of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I guess. Whatever the heathens do. Free coffee and stale donuts. During the singing, large group of people would jump up onto the pews and furiously bounce along to the music, belting out the lyrics. He was smiling, clapping his hands along to the music, and interjected with him waving his arms in the air. I was dying a little and couldn't wait to leave. They had a, thankfully, short service on keeping yourself pure, and my horror grew to the point I think I could power a small city with it. He was nodding along vigorously with the pastor, with the occasional uh-huh and other grunts of agreement. Did he bring me here to convert me from my sinful ways? Damn. The evening could have gone so much worse, but thankfully he didn't ask me what I thought of the service, or maybe he was astute enough to detect my ire. He took me home without incident. My roommates piled on me asking how it was, and well, I told them the same thing I'm telling here. I'm walking down the street, just finishing a conversation on my old-ass, craptastic flip phone. Just as I'm hanging up, wham, I know into someone and drop my phone. I apologize, grab my phone, and head back to work. 10 minutes later, I get a phone call. Hey, I think we switched phones by accident. Turns out the girl I bumped into had the same phone as me. Anyways, we plan to meet at a local coffee place after work that day to trade back. I walk up and see this very cute ginger wearing a suit dress. We chat for a bit. Turns out she works at a bank, likes what I like, and is totally up for getting dinner this weekend. Great! Saturday evening rolls around, and I swing by her place to pick her up. Out her door walks a girl who looks remarkably like said date, only instead of professional office clothes. She is wearing 4-inch platform hoe boots, fishnet stockings, some sort of corset-like top, and in spiky hair. Now normally I don't really care about a person's style, but I was a bit taken aback. Who cares, I think, and jump out to open the door. Cue witty banter. Everything is going great. She's laughing at my jokes, and her humor seems to match mine perfectly. She asks what the plan is for the night, and I tell her I'm going to take her to my absolute favorite high-quality dining establishment and get her a Big Mac. Hell, if she plays her cards right, I might even supersize it. She runs with the joke, and even one-ups me. My spirits are high. She might have wild fashion, but this chick is cool. We arrive at this nice pub in town, and I turn off the car. What about McDonald's? Legit confused look on her face. I laugh, and upon seeing her face stop in confusion. We head inside and order dinner. I have a scotch and she orders the biggest boot. This restaurant has glass boots, of Bud Light I've ever seen. The waiter comes over and takes our order. As he's leaving, my date whispers rather loudly, "I can't believe they let his people in such a classy place. We should probably check our food for spit before we eat it." Our waiter is black and has ears, so I am beginning to panic. She continues her whispered commentary on the supremacy of whites, all the while putting away an obscene, but impressive quantity of beer. Dinner arrives, and she makes a point of checking her plate for saliva. Waiter and I make eye contact, and I like to think that he understood that I agreed with him that this girl was nuts. So 3 more boots of beer later, she excuses herself for a bathroom break while I take care of the check. I apologize profusely to the waiter for my date's conduct. Dude is a true gentleman. Don't worry about it, man. There are all sorts of people in this world. My date returns and we head out. In my car she pulls out a cigarette and lights up. Doesn't even bother putting the window down. We should go shooting out at my dad's farm. What's your favorite fun? I vaguely excuse myself from such activities and point out that it is rather later and time to go home. I drop her off at her house and she says, "This was great, except for that crap waiter. We should totally go get that Big Mac next time. See you soon." I flee. First date with my ex. He picked me up at home. We drive 1 block to his friend's house where he walked straight to the backyard and started yelling, "Tony." No answer. He gets mad. We leave. He never told me what our date would consist of, so as we're driving, I'm looking around and had no idea where we were going. He finally pulls up to the bowling alley in our town. He said he took the back way because he wanted to surprise me. I honk he just got lost. Game 1 commences. I win. He says he let me win because he wanted to be nice. Game 2 I win. Game 3 rolls around, and he's mad because I'm kicking his ass. He was trying his damnedest to beat me. It was quite funny as he was sweating and cursing up a storm with every gutter ball. I asked him if he wanted bumpers as a joke. He just ignored me and sat down across from. I win Game 3. Then I mentioned to him that I used to be on a bowling league and am very kick-ass. We leave after Game 3. We go get Chinese food. We eat, have a conversation. Typical date stuff. He goes up to the counter to ask for a refill on his drink. Cashier asks for the 15 cents refill charge as stated on posted sign on the cash register. He flips out and walks away and tells me we're leaving. I hadn't even finished my food. He drives me back to his friend's house and goes back to the back and continues to yell, "Tony." He gets no answer again. He then tells me they were playing video games and he wanted to finish the game earlier, but since Tony wasn't there, he tried again after our date. With nothing left to do, he drives me the 1 block back home. Needless to say, we dated for a year and a half after that. Things ended after a bad Valentine's Day date. Edit, Tony, I already knew him. My ex, Tony, and I were all on yearbook staff together. Valentine's Day date for those asking, it's long. I got off of an 8-hour shift at work. I was a waitress and on my feet all day. On the way home, he texted me to hurry up and get ready. I just wanted to relax a bit, shower and rest my feet. After I told him I would be ready around 9, he said I needed to be ready earlier. There was never any mention of any reservations to me, so I didn't know why he needed me to be ready before 9. Anyway, he picked me up and we started driving, and it was completely silent. I didn't say anything until we parked in front of BJ's. It was crowded and I said, "Looks busy, we're not going to get a table." He replied, "I had a reservation but you weren't ready on time." A fight started because he was mad that we didn't make it to our reservation. I was mad because I was never told of a reservation, and I would more than likely be paying for dinner, because I was the only one who had a job. His parents never gave him money because they didn't like me. At one point he started punching his steering wheel, and I noped the fuck out of his car and ran to a closed-down furniture store. I called a co-worker, and when my ex ran after me, I told him to stay away from me and that he would never see me again. My co-worker left his date and came to pick me up. The next day I went to pick up my shit and from the ex's house. Okay, I saw him once more, but it was to pick up my shit. I gave him back his promise ring, and he actually said, "Hopefully the next girl will appreciate it more." I told him it wasn't smart to give that ring to the next girl. He texted me later while I was at work, and he said, "Give me some time, and then we can be friends." I never texted him back, and haven't spoken to him since. Yes, the co-worker had feeling for me, and yes, we eventually began dating. He wasn't a rebound. We're still together 5 years later, and getting married next year. So what if I don't know what needless means? Seemed right at the time I was typing this. This is hands down the worst date, not only that I've had, but any of my friends have even heard about. When it got bad, that was only the prequel to what was to come. 2003, I'm at home and get a random phone call. I didn't own a cell, let's call her Melissa, is on the other end. She says she got my number from a mutual friend who thought that I would like her. Okay, this is an odd phone call, but I'm really single, and a prospect of going on a date sounded delightful. We talk for more than an hour. She is sprinkling hints as to what she looks like. She also says she has seen pictures of me and thinks I'm cute, bonus. She mentions her bra size more than once. Okay, sweet, I like a bigger chested girl, I'm thinking. We line up a date for the next Saturday. It was Thursday. I live in town and she lives in a suburb that requires her to catch a train and then a bus, roughly a 2-hour ride to see me. I have no idea what she looks like, except that she has big boobs and brown hair. I'm standing in the spot where we decided to meet, and I'm seeing a girl kind of stumbling down the street. She's wearing those baggy type jeans that goth kids wear, really baggy and frayed at the cuffs. Not my style at all. Also, she's got way too much makeup on. It's her, it's Melissa, my date. The reason she was stumbling is because she got a bit nervous at the idea of a blind date, so she picked up a Mickey for the train ride into town, then another for the bus ride, and I'm meeting 2 Mickeys deep and clearly drunk. The second she sees me, her haze-off drunk rises a notch to excitement, and she drapes herself across me in a sloppy hug with a butt grab added at the end. I'm confused and scared and nervous, and a bit frustrated all at once. I had planned to take her to play pool at an upscale place downtown that's kind of trendy. I mention it, and she's all for it as long as they serve alcohol. Okay. At the pool hall, the waitress gets us a table and asks us if we would like a drink. 4 shots of tequila and a pint of beer. She says, "Wow, okay, tequila? I'm not usually a fan, but okay." I say, "Oh, did you want some tequila too?" She replies. They were all for her. Keep in mind it was probably around 3 in the afternoon. The shits come, and one after another without a pause goes down Melissa's throat. 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4, and then downs the beer. Upon finishing the beer, she looks right into my eyes and wipes the foam from her lips with the back of her hand. My mind pictured what a drunk rapist looks like moments before committing a rape. She saunters over to me while I'm trying to line up a shot and not notice how drunk she's getting. She leans over me while I'm bent over and says, "You can take me. We can go to the bathroom right now if you want." I miss my shot partially due to the hand creeping its way to my crotch. I kind of laugh her off and say maybe we should wait until we finish the game. She lets out this impatient sigh and grabs my cue to make her shot. She isn't really lining it up, and then she takes a hit. It barely even grazed the cue ball. In frustration, Melissa throws the pool cue across the pool table, where upon hitting the carpet snags it, and creates a massive tear across the table. This is hilarious to her, and she starts laughing like an idiot hyena. I'm less than amused. I say I need to take a leak, and head to the bathroom. I'm keeping an eye on my back as I do in the case she's tailing me. In the bathroom, I lock myself into a stall, and put my face in my hands. How did I get here? Who is the woman, and why did I agree to this? How can I get out this? Where is my God, and why has he forsaken me? JK, I'm not religious. While I'm in the bathroom contemplating my poor life decisions, I'm hearing a commotion outside. Some sort of shouting, and a glass breaking. I compose myself as best I can, and leave my sanctuary. Melissa and the bartender are face to face yelling at each other. The bartender and also a friend is being rational and asking her not to pull at the tear created by her pool cue lancing. Apparently, she thought the hilarity would continue if she ripped more carpet off the table, while the waitress and bartender thought better. Melissa sees me and starts explaining how much these two are idiots. I try calming her and tell her maybe we should hit up another place anyway. She complies, thank God. I'm an opportunist, so I try to make the best of this situation. I'm mentally crossing off the date stuff I can do with this girl in her inebriated state, and come to conclusion it would be best to just get drunk and pass the time until her scheduled bus leaves. She's all for it, surprise, surprise. I grab a case of beer, and being a sunny day I suggest a beach not far from the train station. I've stated more than once now that she should be on her way when the bus gets here. I didn't want her to have to be stranded in town if she did, I say. She reluctantly agrees. We pass the next few hours drinking on the beach, and her trying her best to paw at my crotch. By about 6:30 or so I'm fairly buzzed and not far from ending this odd scenario. It's about time to head to the bus station. She's moving at half speed now, and hinting that she doesn't want to leave yet. I'm not paying attention, but instead taking her by elbow and inching toward her bus. She doesn't have any more money. I pay for the ticket. The bus driver takes her ticket, but she doesn't get on. Instead, she looks over her shoulder at me, and then proceeds to empty her stomach right on the first step of the bus. The bus driver pushes her back, curses her out, closes the door, and peels off. Oh God, no. Wiping her mouth of leftover vomit, she gives me a faint smile and says, well, looks like we can hang out a little longer. I'm not amused, I'm not trying to hide it either. I'm not smiling, I'm not being polite, I'm a totem of disappointment. I'm walking away from the train station with her in tow. She explains that she has nowhere to go, and it really isn't a big deal if she just goes home with me. And besides, we can have some fun while we're at it. No. I let the steam of anger simmer down a bit and think logically, mistake. She really doesn't have anywhere to go, and it would be a dick move to just leave her to her own devices. Reluctantly, I tell her she crash at my place, but it's going to be on my couch. She's all for it. I live with my cousin at the time and he's home. He sees this atrocity come in behind me and runs to his bedroom, stifling the laughs along the way. Fuck you, cuz. We watch a bit of TV while finishing the last of the beer in my fridge. I tell her it's getting late and I'm going to call it a night. I grab some extra blankets and pillows for her. She takes them quietly and thanks me. It's the middle of the night. I'm awakened by a sensation in being crushed. Melissa is on top of me. On top, my blankets fully clothed, and our faces are inches apart. I couldn't sleep, is all she says. I tell her to get off of me, and that she's hurting me. She gets up. She says she didn't want to sleep in my living room, and asks if she can sleep in here with me. Wordless, I get up, grab the blankets and pillow from the living room, and make a bed next to mine. She watches me do this, and when I finish, instead saying anything, I point to the bed and climb back into my own. Once more that night, she attempted to get on top of me. Also, she never took her shoes off. The heavens smile upon me by blessing me with daybreak. I wake her up and repeat the process of taking her to the bus station. This time the formalities are gone. There's your bus, don't puke this time. No, I didn't have a good time, but goodbye anyway. On returning home, I pull out my black book and look up our mutual friend, and proceed to rag her out for putting me through such an ordeal. My friend is perplexed and has no idea who Melissa is. I describe her, and there's a moment of silence. She says she remembers now, it makes sense, she says. My friend had her friend from out of town come to visit, but she had brought along her cousin, who was high-functioning, but a special needs student. Her mother was in the process having her signed over to a group home here in town. When Melissa visited my friend, she apparently went through her things and found a photo of me with her with my phone number on the back and took it. I went on a date with a mentally disabled woman. I'll tell it from the bad date side. We had never been on a date, and she barely knew me. It was our first date, and certain to be our last. I picked her up and immediately commented on her appearance. How gorgeous she looks, blah blah blah. She was not a woman to be objectified, however sexy she may have been, and within minutes I was on strike one. I took her to my friend's house. It was Christmas break, so he presented me with a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I rolled us a few joints. Nothing too weird yet. Nothing she hasn't seen. Well, I opened the bottle, and we do a couple of shots. Just then, he pulled out this antique Soviet sniper rifle, and we began taking it apart and talking about how badass the hammer and sickle looks on the iron sights. It was a Mosin, and what kind of killing you could do with it from over 2 miles away. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my date was frozen. She was rigid with fear. Then, my buddy pulls out his brand new top-of-the-line USP, military-grade handgun, and shows me its dank sliding action. I'm blatantly aware by now of how bad this looks, but we'd crossed the point of no return, and there was nothing left to do now but embrace it. Besides, the guns were admittedly very cool. Surely she knew that. We are otherwise nerdy gamers, or else we wouldn't even know these guns exist. So we didn't for a moment consider how white trash, redneckish, and sketch we must seem to outsiders. Hey, I know how you love drug abuse, so I bought you a bottle of whiskey. By the way, check out my growing arsenal. I think an AK-47 also came out. Well, allow me to carry out this white trash behavior to its bitter end. While drinking and driving away from my friend's house, the girl wants desperately to be dropped off back at her car. This is illegal in so many ways, and I've even offered her alcohol from the driver's seat. She was 18, and this is America. Land of the free, not so much. Not like this. At the Burger King drive-thru, I decide I'm feeling overly emotional about my mother's recent death, and I'm overcome by the sudden realization that every relationship I've chased was a diversion from layers of grief beginning at early childhood. You tend to think more candidly about your problems when you're in the company of someone who makes you want to be better. That, combined with the obvious failure of this evening, and my unwillingness to be anything other than a wild-eyed extension of my ID before this girl, on whom I made a horrible, lasting impression, is all too much. The jig was up. I dropped the whole effort and admitted the only thing I wanted from her ever again was a hug. And if I could just have that, I will write the whole thing off. Surprisingly, she obliged, and we hugged for a solid minute. Fuck, I needed that, I thought. And I thanked her. She said, "You're welcome." I then became profoundly depressed, no doubt exacerbated by the alcohol and marijuana. But I was honest and I was myself, and I didn't care that she hated me. It was better to have that than for her to like anyone else I could only pretend to be. She sped away in her Saturn, and her friend said I scared her half to death, and to just forget about it. I wouldn't see her again for another 2 years, when we met at a coffee shop. I was in college by then, cleaned up my act, got dressed, and headed in a new direction. Again, I made no effort to impress her, but somehow I did. We've been together for 2.5 years, and she understands me better than anyone else in this world. And she loves me. The real me. What a horrible date, though. It's her favorite story to tell. Here is a summary. I had met this guy this summer, and we hit it off really well. He made me crab cakes. I'm from Maryland, so that is always great in my book. And we watched the fireflies in the forest behind his house, under the stars. We both agreed we had really enjoyed ourselves. We hooked up. That was great too. We decided to go get McFlurries from McDonald's, and I thought, I don't need any shoes. Now keep in mind I'm 5'6" 120 pounds, blonde hair. 19, so we hop in the car. His car is low and has tinted windows, so it looked sketch. We got ice cream and we were driving back, and he gets pulled over for not turning on his left turn signal at a left green arrow. The cop asks me my name, and he goes back to his car. 15 minutes pass, and we're both freaking out. Then another cop car pulls up. Rewind, I lost my wallet during the school year, and it was given to a cop. Unfortunately, there was a false ID in there, so I was called and had to go get it. But they didn't say I was being charged, so they took my ID and I left. I get a call about a month later, and the cop says, "You need to come into the station to sign papers," and I asked, "Can you explain to me what's happening?" He said, "You just need to fill out some paperwork. Those who listen are better off than those who don't," and hung up. So I was thinking, was that a threat or no? I called my dad and he talked to my uncle who is a cop, and they told me not to go in. Apparently, it was a summons I had to sign. And since I didn't go in, it turned into a warrant for my arrest. Unfortunately, I had no idea because they were sending all the papers to my mailbox at my dorm at school, which is not where I live in the summer. So fast forward, the cop comes back to the car and says, "Ma'am, did you know there is a warrant out for your arrest?" I had no idea. Fortunately, the kid I was with knew about everything previously. We waited for the cop to call the police, which was 3 hours away, and he told me he wasn't sure if they were going to have to come get me, or if I could be detained in the county I was in. So we waited, and waited, and waited. Finally, he comes around and says I have to be detained there. A female cop comes to my side and asks me to get out. Ironically, I'm in a black and white striped dress, also with no shoes. They handcuffed me and put me in the cop car. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't wipe the tears off my face. I got to the jail with no idea of what was going to happen. They searched me, asked me questions, and put shackles on my ankles. I had no shoes on, and my toes kept getting caught in the chains. Then they put me in a cell. I sat. They took my picture, my prints and all. They also laughed because it was a first date. -3:30 rolls around, and finally they let me go out and sign papers. They take those fucking shackles off my ankles, and I call the kid. Thankfully, I wrote his number on my hand before they took me away. He was right in the front with my shoes, my mom and my sister. His dad bought me coffee in the morning and a muffin, then have me a high five. So, I get an itch for some delicious sashimi from my favorite restaurant in town, and I drive on over. Table for one, please. The cute hostess seats me and kind of gives me the eye. I brush it off and pay no mind. I start answering some work emails on my phone as my meal arrives, and I continue to reply to these shits and eat my food in peace. Hello, can I sit with you? I'm on break. It's the cute hostess. I put my phone down and tell her she's more than welcome. We enjoy some small talk, and she asks me to hang out. I figured I'd go for it since she's kinda cute, but a little invasive. Whatever. So that night, it's 10 p.m., and she calls me and asks me to go out with her and her friends. I say no, but she insists and she offers to pick me up. My truck was in the shop, so I figured that was pretty nice of her. Little did I know she was doing it to give me no way out of her crazy trap. We hit up this huge dance club, which is something I never do because it's way out of my comfort range. She introduces me to like 10 of her friends. All of them giggle and smile, and I hear one say, "He looks like he could be the one." What the fuck? Do I look like Keanu? Whatever. I order a beer and ask her if she wants a drink. She's like, "Oh, I'll get my own," and orders 5 shots of Sky vodka and drinks them all in succession. So here I am, with this girl whose friends think I'm going to marry, and she's fucking shit can hammered. Great. Hey, this place is a little intense for me. We should split. She's like, "I'll BRB," and comes back with 2 shots of Jameson. I take them because fuck it. I'm stuck now, and if something happens I'd like to use, I was drunk, as an excuse. Last call comes around, and we're walking out the door. She insists on driving, and it's like a 5-minute ride back to our neighborhood. So I figure I'd like to live dangerously for one evening and hop in the passenger side. I'm drunk enough, and I want the night to be over. Fuck it. She takes me to her fucking parents' house instead of her apartment. It's 20 minutes from my house. No chance in walking home now. Sad face. We walk in and she's like, "Do you want some wine?" I want some wine. I'm going to get us some wine from the wine cellar. Little did I know, her parents own the restaurant in which this tale began. She comes back up from downstairs with this bottle of wine. God knows what kind it was. I'm not sure if it was $6 or $600. I didn't care anymore. I can't find a corkscrew. And she hammers the glass on the edge of the countertop and makes a smooth break. I was pretty impressed, but still kind of worried about my fate. Oh shit, I gotta let my dogs out. She opens the cages and lets these dogs just shit on the floor and says to me, "Pretend like you didn't see that. Let's go up to my room. I want to show you something. Do you want some Coke?" "No thanks, but I'll come with you." At this point, I was ready to bang her or hang myself, as there was no way out of this predicament. We head upstairs and she breaks out a mirror and cuts up a few lines. "I want to read you something." She starts reading me journal entries and the shittiest poetry I've ever heard as she does lines and drinks wine. These are journal entries from when I was in rehab. I used to do a lot of coke. I went through a really rough time with my ex-husband when we lived in Italy. I didn't know it, but he was gay. I tried everything I could to make him straight again, or even be attracted to me more. I even let him fuck me in the ass. Something along those lines. So here I am, in this chick's parents' house at 5 in the morning, drunk and listening to her terrify me with her life story the first time we met. She puts her journal, the cocaine, and the glass of wine. It was more of a cup like you would use for your morning glass of milk or whatever, down and asks me if she can try something. Whatever, go ahead. I'm frustrated, drunk, tired, annoyed, and this girl won't shut the hell up. She climbs on top of me and starts gyrating on my man parts and playing with herself. I'm thinking, this is a really unorthodox way of trying to get someone to fuck you, but whatever. So I go with it. Like a minute later, she gets off of me and grabs my dick and says, "You're hard. I thought I was kind of scaring you, but I see that I'm turning you on. But I don't want to have sex with you. It's our first date. I tell her I'm tired and I have underscore 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 to do the next day. I just want to sleep. So I make a weird barrier of blankets between us and pass out. The next day she drives me home and asks if I would like to hang out again. Sure, I said as sarcastically as possible, thinking me might get the hint, and I just the door and walk to my apartment. That night she calls me again and asks me if I want to go see Lady Gaga. I've always wanted to see a Lady Gaga show, but I had to bail for the sake of my own sanity. Row 4. RIP. I joined website for dating to try and get more dates. That was my only intent. I've been working too much for 2 years at my new job. I just wanted to have more fun. I got an email and set up a date with this girl. It's my 5th date from the site. It's been fun. But this one girl was like one of those love at first sight moments when we met at a restaurant. I saw HH and she was perfect. I tried to play it cool, but I felt like I could just cut ties with all the girls I've dated and just commit to her. Physically, she was everything I could ever ask for and exactly my type. Her personality seemed about a 10 out of 10. About 30 minutes into sitting down, we didn't even order cause we were just talking. The chemistry was as good as it was with my first love when I was 13. It was perfect, sparks were flying. I thought I was done and ready to commit here. But then she tells me to forget about ordering food. Let's go somewhere else. And she has this idea. She won't say much, and I like surprises, so I didn't ask much. We jumped in my car and drove to this restaurant about 20 minutes away, kind of out of town. It was halfway up a mountain near a ski resort. I'm familiar with the area, so no big deal. We walk in, and her family is celebrating her aunt's birthday. There was only family and a lot of it, about 40 people. She introduces me, and everybody was happy to meet me, and real nice. Everybody also knew that she was out on a first date. They were asking her stuff like, "Is this the guy? Is this your date? Is this the one?" All of a sudden I wasn't so cool and relaxed. I felt heavy pressure to be on my best behavior. It was high pressure to the 3rd degree. But everybody was nice, so that helped. We sat down and I started being questioned by her older sister, her aunt, and another lady that I forget her relation to my date. The mom started kind of defending me and telling them to back off and let me eat. But the interrogating continued. After I don't know how long, they turned to my date and jokingly said, "We approve." Then I was able to kind of get my bearings about me for a minute. I was totally off balance all night, just tense. I was afraid the back of my shirt would get that a big wet spot because I felt sweat on my back. So the sister brings her cute little girl and lets me hold her, and she and my date started taking pictures of me holding her, and somebody else's baby boy as well. I started to feel like the tone of it all was that we were a couple. I kind of felt like I was married to her, and these nice people were my in-laws. After a couple of hours, probably closer to 3 hours, everybody was kind of tiring out and everything began to wind down. Keep in mind her car is still at the other restaurant down the hill. Then her dad suddenly asks me jokingly what my intentions are with his daughter, though I can't remember how he phrased the question. Everybody looked at the table, looked at me, which is about half the people there. I guess I was exhausted from all the questioning. I was questioned by multiple people multiple times, and the pressure of it all because I kind of lost it. He asked the question, I looked across the table at her, and she told her dad to stop it. Her dad smiles and jokingly says that he'd really like to hear my response, and her uncle, I think, also said he'd like to know jokingly. I looked at my date and said, "Can I talk to you alone for a minute?" To which her dad laughs loudly, and then says I made him nervous. So everybody is laughing now, and I guess it was a big joke. Then I said to my date, "Hey, can I talk to you alone for a minute?" I stood up in place, it was one of those long bench seats, and I couldn't push it back cause other people were sitting on it. Then her sister, I think, says, "Oh, there are no secrets in this family, speak your mind." People then laugh again, and everybody starts making jokes about not having secrets, and this man who married into the family somehow tells me that he remembers being in my place, and he says, "Let me give you some advice. The best thing to do right now is speak your mind and be honest." Then others join in and echo his sentiment, all jokingly, I think. So I looked at my date, and she says something like, "You can tell me anything here, we're all family." She also, I think, was joking, but I had started to lose my ability to tell when people were joking and when they were serious. So the dad says, "Wait, I haven't gotten an answer to my question." So finally I speak directly to the dad and say, "I'd like to discuss that with her first." But I regretfully laughed as I said it. So her dad says, "I asked you first, I want to know." I turn to my date and she says something like, "Go ahead, you can tell me. I'm a big girl, I can handle it." So I said okay, and sat down, then took a couple of breaths while her dad kind of quieted everybody down. I started with, "I think I made a huge mistake." It all spiraled down from there. I said harsh things like that I felt like I was having a bad dream where I was suddenly married. I questioned her intentions in bringing me there. I said stuff like, "What were you thinking? Yes, I liked you, but I just met you, and right now I know your aunt." I pointed at her sitting next to me. "Better than I know you." I think she was humiliated, but I couldn't stop. The more I spoke, the more bad stuff came out. Total fucking tailspin. I said I want to find someone special, but I don't want to skip the first 29 dates and skip to date 30, which is what I'd done that night. Then people started interrupting and chiming in and suggesting that she and I slow down and have a real first date. I wasn't having it. I was out of control. I said, "No, it's too late for that. I feel robbed here. I wanted to meet this girl, get to know her, date her, and maybe fall for her. But now it's like we're engaged and her whole family is here, and there are all these expectations. We skipped the getting to know each other and dating part, so I feel robbed." Then I said yet another thing I regret. I said it's a huge red flag, with an emphatic gesture, that I asked for a minute alone with you to talk, and this is what I got instead. I added something like, "You're all great and a great family, but the lack of certain boundaries is a huge red flag for me. I would never let my relationship become family business." My date interrupts me at this point and says, "Okay, so let's talk in private. Let's go outside and talk. I'm sorry I didn't give you that minute. Let's go outside and talk privately. I'll give you all night." She was visibly shaken, and I could tell tears were inevitable. I stood up again, and realizing that I had insulted all of them, I just quietly walked out. I felt really bad cause they were all nice and had nothing but the best intentions for me. They love her, and they were literally telling me that I was good enough, which should have been a compliment, but I somehow took it the wrong way and spat in their face. I didn't even drink. Well, might as well go ahead and tell this story to all of you lovely people. I started sending a few messages back and forth with this girl from OkCupid, and she seemed pretty cool, so we decided to meet up and go get a bite to eat. I drove down to pick her up and texted her when I was parked outside. I got a reply saying that she would be right out. I decided that I should get out of my car, just so that way it would be way easier to spot where I was at. After a few minutes I heard a "Hey Chickenston," and turned to see her. I knew things were off to start with because she was easily 60 plus pounds heavier than any of the pictures that she had posted on OKC. Whatever, weight isn't terribly important to me, so I say hello back and we get in my car and start to drive to the restaurant. Within 10 minutes of driving and small talk, she turns to me and says, "Chickenston, where do you see your relationship going?" I awkwardly say that I don't really know since we just met. I tell her that I'm on OKC because I am looking to start a relationship, but it is just way too early to tell. After a few minutes she turns and tells me that the house I picked her up isn't actually hers. She is living there currently and is staying with her ex-boyfriend. However, the ex also lives with his mother. The kicker is that the mother doesn't know that she is staying there. So basically she has been sneaking in and out of the place. We proceed to have a rather awkward lunch with a bit more small talk, and once we finish eating, she asks if we can go to the park. I should have noped out of there as I was already feeling pretty uncomfortable with the situation. However, we went to the park, which is where the real horror started. As we're walking around the park, the girl gets a phone call. It's the ex-boyfriend, and he tells her that his mother has come home early and that she can't come back for a while. The girl is clearly upset after hanging up and turns to me. "Chickenston, can I stay with you tonight? I really want to be your woman." Stunned, but retaining my senses, I tell her that she can't stay with me and that I'm really not comfortable with the situation. I tell her that I'll drop her off at Starbucks later. I decided to run to the bathroom really quickly and begin to frantically text all of my friends, telling them to call me and say that they were locked out of the apartment and need my help. I probably should have just told the girl that I needed to leave, but I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. Eventually one of my friends calls me, and I tell her that I have to go let him in the apartment. The girl and I get in the car and proceed to the nearest Starbucks. When we pull up to Starbucks, the girl turns to me and again begs to stay with me tonight as she still wants to be my woman. I tell her no, and then she starts to cry. Not a few tears, but straight out bawling. I'm sitting there awkwardly when I start to smell a strong hint of urine. I look down and she has clearly pissed herself in the front seat of my car. At that point I tell her to please get out of my car, and when she does I drove to a nearby gas station and proceeded to clean my car. Junior prom. A few weeks before prom, one of, if not the prettiest girls in the school didn't have a date yet. I knew she'd fairly recently broken up with her boyfriend, so in all likelihood she was holding out. But regardless, that just means most other folks already had dates. It was a small school. One day I gathered up enough balls to ask if she'd like to go with me. We'd been casually talking in the hallways before school, but nothing crazy. I didn't for a minute think she liked me. Surprisingly, she said yes. Over the next few weeks I'd stop by and see her at work after school or on weekends. One day she was feeling particularly shitty and I, cheesily, had flowers delivered in an effort to cheer her up. Back then I lacked a lot of confidence, so I was quite good at being the nice guy for a girl while she pined over someone else. Anywho, to move the story along, we get to prom. It's catered. She doesn't talk much at the table, to me or anyone. The evening goes on and things don't change much. Her mind is just elsewhere. Eventually the music cranks up. I'm not a huge fan of dancing, and I was feeling pretty defeated myself at this point. So I stepped out for a few minutes to gather my shit, and came back in right around the time the first slow song came on. We started dancing, and about midway through her complete, arrogant jackass of an ex walks up, cuts me out, tells me he's taking over. She proceeds to spend the whole evening with him, essentially, quite happily I might add. It was tradition at our school for groups to arrange a trip after prom as well, and we'd both decided to go to the same one, a theme park. But of course he did too. As you can imagine, nothing else changed over the next couple days. They sat together on the bus and basically spent the whole time up each other's ass, and she didn't speak to me the rest of the time. And just to add this to it, even though it's, for me, the least hurtful piece, I paid for everything. Her ticket, the photos, the trip. She paid for her dress, and that was about it. Once all was said and done, I realized that she really just wanted a way in. She was a sophomore and couldn't go unless she went with an upperclassman. I was a junior. Good enough. Which seems fitting. I've always been and felt good enough. I've got a couple stories that I can think of off the top of my head. First one, met a girl online, spoke for a few weeks before meeting. We met at her place to go out with her friends early evening. I went straight there from work and needed to eat, so I ate. She mentioned that she hadn't eaten all day and didn't want anything. Stopped by liquor store, grabbed 6 coolers and a small bottle of rum. While she's getting ready, she and I each drink 2 coolers each. Her friend, girl number 2, comes and picks us up. There was no attraction on my end for her, but her friend's roommate, girl number 3, was cute, and her and I had more in common than girl number 1 and I. Girl number 1 decides to do rum shots after drinking a couple more coolers, so we each do some shots. From there the 4 of us head to a bar. While waiting in line at the bar, girl number 1 decides she knows the bouncers and can get us in. I'm left with girls number 2 and number 3. After about 10 to 15 minutes, girl number 2 goes looking for girl number 1, while I'm left with girl number 3. Moments later, girl number 2 reappears, and letting us know that girl number 1 is passed out on the sidewalk outside the front door. Second one, again met and spoke to girl online before meeting. She decides we need dinner at her place and would like drinks. I make her a martini while she cooks dinner. Halfway through dinner she decides she's not feeling well and asks me to put on some music while she heads to the bathroom. She's puking in there for a good 15 minutes before re-emerging and trying to make out with me now. I deny her request and keep eating. Moment later she's back in the bathroom, so at this point, I'm out the door. Moments after leaving I start getting come back texts. I ignore them. She then starts accusing me of drugging her, again by text as I'm not answering the phone calls. The texts/calls went on for hours afterwards. It wasn't a date, but he'd convinced himself it was. Mutual commiseration over the 2 of us not getting to go on the company trip at a bar near the shop. Coincidentally, near his house too, so I parked there to avoid paid parking. Then he asked me to come inside to pre-game, and I got weird vibes. I'd turned him down twice before, and something about the scenario flicked a switch. I lied and said I'd rather have only one at the bar as I was going to drive home later. And he goes, "Oh, I've got sealed drinks in the fridge, and my roommates are home, don't worry." Bro, now I'm extra fucking worried. Edit, because people have been asking, I'll explain my thought process and fear behind that particular situation. TLDR, don't, when completely unprompted, reassure someone of the reasons you can't/won't drug or rape them when they turn down an offer to pre-game. I'll admit to being a pretty paranoid person. I went to school to be a police officer and am an insufferable party mom. I don't drink booze out of open spirit bottles at an acquaintance's house. I also don't go into other people's homes without at least one other close friend with me. Both are rules born out of necessity, as I've been drugged at a party via a drink I watched poured. Never trust box wine. They cut open the bag and put it back inside the box, and never let out of my sight. I've also had to case a house to find a plastered friend who'd been swept away to someone's room. So again, I'll admit the odds were stacked against him on that one. The thing that first set me off was the offer to come inside. I'd already turned down his advances twice before, and he was proving himself to be disrespectful of my boundaries, and my straightly delivered no, as one commenter points out, he was super awkward, so I was willing to give friendship a chance. It's why I even considered going to the bar with him in the first place. I had no idea at the time anyone else was home, and it was too intimate an offer to be sure he'd be respectful of my space in his own home. The nail in the coffin was when told I just wanted one drink at the bar and then to head home. He responded with what was essentially, "Oh, well, don't worry, I'm not going to rape you or anything." He didn't know I was lying or super uncomfortable, and that just affirmed to me that, yeah, you can't take no for an answer, and I'm pretty sure you don't intend to leave after we go inside. Which proved correct based on his ensuing behavior. To answer this thread, I actually almost picked another thing he said to me. We were all on a bus heading to a meeting, and he sat next to me even though I told him no, and there were plenty of other seats. I stared out the window and ignored him the whole time. When we arrived, he asked me how my nap was. I said I wasn't sleeping, and he said, "No, I can tell when you're sleeping." Quit shortly after that, because my boss refused to separate us or do anything. Edit number 2. Just to address a couple comments so they don't get lost in the thread. Before I turned him down the second time, I actually liked him a lot. The first time I was clear and said no, but let's just carry on as we were. The second rejection was a, "Dude, I already said no, this time listen because I mean it." He was attractive, probably an 8 out of 10. I just wasn't interested like that. Sorry I didn't provide that context, but I didn't think it was an important detail. And I'm happy some of you think I'm overly paranoid. I'm glad you haven't had to prop yourself over a trash can because you can't stop puking and don't want to choke and die since you can't stay awake, all over one unfinished and tampered with drink. I'm glad you've never had to deck someone to keep them from sexually assaulting your friend and book it so you don't get arrested. I'm happy that's not something you've had to think about, because honestly it sucks to have to look at the world this way. Regardless of my degree and the knowledge it gave me, I don't have the luxury of assuming these things won't happen anymore, because they've happened to me directly. Regardless of what you may assume about my relationship with this person, his attractiveness, or my paranoia, no is a complete sentence. Reassurance is not needed, because I already said no. I stopped using Tinder after a mini nightmare I had that could have got me in a lot more trouble than it did. Just over a year ago I was starting uni, and this provided the perfect chance to match new girls and have some fun with like-minded people. I matched a few girls, and one called Becky actually messaged me first. After some small talk, she ended up coming to our uni halls for pre-drinks with a flatmate. We really hit it off. She was pretty funny and seemed into me. Probably a bit too much, she seemed really keen. On the night out I got a few snogs, and before long she asked to go back to mine. I lost my uni virginity on the first night. I was on top of the world. The next day I was texting this girl, but I kept on using Tinder. Anyway, I matched this gorgeous girl called Sierra, who I just couldn't help but message. I was giving her all my best lines, but they didn't seem to be working, so I backed away and went back to Becky. Then out the blue I get a message at 2 a.m. from Sierra, and she asks me if I fancy a Netflix and chill night. I went over, and after watching about 40 minutes of American Pie, we were getting it on. I was loving uni. The next day Sierra was being really blunt with me. She told me how she didn't want me to get the wrong idea, but she just broke up with her boyfriend and just wanted sex. I'm not proud, but I basically threw myself at her perfect feet and said I'd go over and have sex anytime she wanted it, no strings attached. On the next night out I met up with Becky, and we got on so great. Once again we got close, and she came back to mine for another good night. I've never met a girl with a sex drive like hers. She was a bit of a pest at times, but Tinder was my best friend. I got another late night booty call from Sierra a couple of days later. It was another sex-filled night. Now comes the tragic end to my wonderful dream. Start to uni. Becky invited me to hers the night after I'd been with Sierra. We were going to order takeout and watch a movie. I hadn't been to Becky's yet, or so I thought. Turns out she is flatmates with Sierra. I was shitting myself. What if Becky finds out I was in the room a few doors down last night? Or how will Sierra feel knowing I'm also kind of seeing her flatmate? I got myself to Becky's room ASAP, and just stayed there all night. I fell asleep while the film was on because I was still recovering from my night with Sierra, and I knew how Becky liked it. But at 6 a.m. Becky is rousing me, and within minutes has me inside her. I was beginning to feel like she was just a high maintenance for me, and with her being so loud, I thought for sure Sierra would have heard. After I left, I knew I couldn't go through that again. Even if I picked one of them to keep seeing, it would be awkward as hell. I invited Sierra around mine a couple of nights later, and after some heavy sex, I decided to just be honest with her about Becky. Sierra wasn't really happy about it, so I told her I'd stop seeing Becky. Unfortunately, the next night out, when I saw Becky looking amazing, I was just too drunk to control myself. And the next thing I know, I'm at Becky's doing her on the loudest bed I've ever been in. Sierra texted me the next day and said she had heard me and Becky last night and was done with me. I begged her not to tell Becky the truth. She obliged on the condition I not see Becky anymore. I agreed. Figured it was a good time to get out and enjoy being single. Becky did not understand at all. She was a lot more invested in me than I thought, and seeing how she reacted to being pied off, I'm very glad she didn't know what had happened with Sierra. But we almost hooked up at the end of first year. We were both smashed and in the smoking area of the club, got to chatting and made up with each other. She came back to mine after, but it just ended up being a one-time thing, and I've hardly spoke to her since. Sierra gives me evils every time she sees me, but luckily that isn't much. I can't say I regret my start to uni life, and I have to thank Tinder for it, but it did put me in an awkward and stressful situation that I'd never have been in otherwise. I know I kind of brought it on myself for playing the field, but I just got carried away with having two amazing girls who both wanted to have sex with me. And I never had that before, but I still recommend Tinder to people, even though I stopped using it after this. There was a girl on OKC that openly stated she was pregnant, not much of a baby bump yet, but separated from the father. I thought she was cute. I wasn't sure what to think about the pregnancy. My best relationship was an affair, so I've walked into drama before. But I just thought that was really admirable of her to not be afraid to put herself back out there because of the pregnancy. Hell, she seemed more confident than me. This was just the 5th or 6th girl I ever messaged on the site, and online dating was still weird to me, and none of my conversations had led to an actual date yet. I just messaged her telling her I commended her for her confidence in herself. Nothing more or any intentions to take things further than that. Just an internet thumbs up. We actually hit it off really well. Exchanged numbers within just a few messages, and carried on really long text conversations. You know, that feeling where it doesn't feel like the usual routine of online dating, but more that you're actually connecting and enjoying just talking. We were laughing and enjoying each other enough I just went for it, asked her out. She said yes without hesitation, emoji and all. The day of the date, Thursday, there's no contact. As the hours come closer, I text and call to see if we were still on. Was still newish to online dating. Wasn't aware ghosting was common. Was pretty bummed because we had hit it off so well. I sent an occasional text asking if she was okay every other day. One phone call, but I guess she just had second thoughts about me. I really had no clue. None of the texts were over-intrusive, just once every other day at most. And our texting wasn't just casual flirting, so I really would expect her to like me enough to come out and say she had second thoughts if that was the case. I'm feeling defeated about it at this point, so I don't really care that another call on Sunday will probably go unanswered. She surprisingly answers. This is the first time we talked on the phone. I said, it's ____ from OKC. Everything okay? Yeah, can I call you back? There are cops at my door right now, and I just got back from the hospital. She texts back a few hours later apologizing. She had actually come down with awful internal pain the day of the date and went to the hospital. Turns out she had gallstones, apparently somewhat common during pregnancy. She didn't want to risk the baby's life with surgery to remove the gallstones, so she decided to just try and fight through the pain. We actually continued talking since then another 2 weeks. She shared how she was feeling as far as dealing with the pain and pregnancy. I never pressured her, just told her my offer to take her out to dinner still stands if she can find the energy to leave the house. She appreciated it and told me she would let me know when the pain feels more manageable. One day she told me she went home from work early because the pain was really bad and probably going to take a nap. Her parents were checking in on her still, so she would be okay. And that was the last time I ever heard from her. I feel bad. I don't even care about the date anymore. I just wanted to know she was still okay. Even if we weren't compatible or it wouldn't work out with the situation, I still liked her as a person. I've sent occasional texts. I called maybe once a week. Nothing.